what is CNCF, and interview with Alex Olivier from Cerbos in this episode. Stay tuned. CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. One of the most known, if not the most known, foundation out there today under Linux Foundation. And CNCF, as the name said, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, is taking care about cloud native solutions which are open source. This is very important. And Cloud Native Computing Foundation is providing the all help needed for those organizations, those projects to thrive, to be available for you. CNCF has a lot of projects. You probably already heard about CNCF and CNCF landscape. I will tell you a little bit more about this in the next episode. Under CNCF we have a lot of very, very interesting projects which probably you are using on daily basis, starting with, for example, OPA, starting with Open Policy Agent, through the Jaeger, through the Prometheus, ending on Kubernetes. So all of those technologies are under CNCF. That was the very short introduction about CNCF. The interview. This time I talk with Alex Olivier from Cerbos. We talk about security again. Looks like this is a very important topic, isn't it? This time security in form of access management and things around that. And also we touch different topics, so enjoy the interview and feel the spirit of the conference by the background noises. Enjoy. So here we are with Alex from Cerbos, and I wonder if you know this company. If not, it's time to learn more. So are you doing something with security by any chance?
Yeah, very much kind of in the security, the IAM, the access management space. So Cerbos is an open source project to help you implement those fine-grained application permissions in your application services. So if you're building an application, you've probably got an identity provider. If someone logs in, they give you a credential, you get an identity back, and that user will have some roles normally associated with it. But when it comes down to actually implementing that inside your application code, what you can kind of end up doing is writing this logic that says, if the user has role admin, then allow the API call. If the user has the role of manager, only allow the access if XYZ conditions are met. And that code gets quite fragile and complicated as your business scales. And if you imagine you sign a new customer that needs some custom role definitions, you end up having to touch this very complicated code all the time. So with Cerbos, it decouples all of that out into policy. So YAML-based policy, if you're happy with Kubernetes manifests, you can write Cerbos policies, and then you run and deploy a Cerbos container inside of your cluster as a sidecar or as another service. And then your application code, at every point where you want to check permissions, rather than hard coding that logic, you just make an API call out saying, I've got this user trying to do this action on this resource. Cerbos evaluates the policies, creates a log, and simply simplifies your code to a single if statement.
So, in other words, you don't need to write your own airbags. You have this
exactly
in one pack.
Yeah, I've had to build those systems about a dozen times in my career so far. It takes like 3 months to do properly, and then 6 months later the requirements change.
Yes.
You end up wasting another 3 months updating it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How do you find KubeCon so far? It's second day after the longest day ever, right?
First day of KubeCon is always a tough one on the voice and the feet.
Yeah.
But that's great. Like we do KubeCon in the US and Europe, and Europe's always, I think, my favorite if I had to pick. So much bigger crowd, and there's a lot more, I'd say, this year architect types here. It's great to meet developers, but there's now, I feel like, a bit of an elevation in terms of kind of the discussions you now have in the last couple of years around like much more architecture, thinking like developer platforms, these sort of things. So it's actually a great audience to talk about RBAC and permissions and these different building blocks and components you need when building an architecture.
Great. And I see that there is a much more like an impact related to security done by different companies here, right? So, well, it's good, I think, and I always love that in my talks the security is mentioned as last thing, and I'm laughing about this, but I have a purpose on it, because if you remember anything from my talk, this will be probably the last thing.
Yes.
So it will be security.
Yeah, it's
right?
very much this like shift left kind of phrase, which I personally don't like, because it doesn't really mean anything, but very much security is now not a checklist of things you need to worry about just before you get to production. Building security into the application from day one is getting more important, but also getting much easier because of the tooling that's kind of now available, and the kind of the best practice architectures, zero trust architectures. It's now just kind of a common foundation that you can easily build on top of, rather than being an afterthought.
Yeah, that's true. And I wonder, because security looks boring from outside.
Oh yeah,
right?
it's the least sexiest thing to think about.
So how communities build around this topic?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, if you look now at kind of the broader ecosystem that we're having to run and build our applications in, for better or for worse, there's lots of now global regulations around data protection, data security. Here in Europe we have GDPR, the US you got CCPA, and actually anyone building a product beyond the prototype that's actually having paying customers, there's actually a whole new raft of things you need to worry about around security. So naturally it becomes one of those must-haves rather than a nice-to-have. And so naturally people are upskilling in this space, understanding a lot more about kind of security architectures, and naturally you kind of have this community that grows from it. And a lot of people kind of taking those transferable skills from maybe DevOps or just general architecture and kind of applying them to the security space, because ultimately that's where you need to think, and that's what you need to worry about, and that's what you need to scale and design platforms around.
All right, perfect. So going back to Cerbos, how simple folk like me can start with Cerbos?
Absolutely. Well, like I said, Cerbos is an open core, open source project. You can go and grab us on GitHub. Just look at github.com/Cerbos. But if you go to cerbos.dev, it's our website, there's actually an online playground where you can get up and running and start writing these policies like we can see behind me directly in your browser without having to run and deploy anything. And we have a whole suite of getting started guides and tutorials there as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Alex. And thank you for your time.
Likewise, nice to meet you.
Pleasure. Thanks.
That was Alex and the third episode of this short video series. Next time we will talk a little bit about CNCF landscape, and we will have another interview. Surprise, surprise. Stay tuned.